Welcome to Kicks and Minivans, the podcast for dads who love sneakers. I am your host, KG. However you were watching and listening, man, we thank you for joining us, for tuning in, for hanging out for a little bit. Hey, want to continue to make you aware, if you love the podcast, if you love the content that's been being put out and the mission to help men win in marriage and parenting, want to invite you to financially back the podcast. If that is something you're interested in, there's a link in the show notes. It is set at $10 a month. It will tell you get like exclusive access to exclusive behind the scene content. Like, I ain't got none of that, but just keeping it real. A podcast is not free to put out. It takes time, it takes money, it takes resources. And so the podcast will continue even if no one wants to back it. That is cool, understandable. But if it is something that you would like to financially support and show appreciation for, there's a link in the show notes and I would be thankful. So just making you aware of that option. And as we go into this week's episode, I'm curious to know first if y'all are vibing with the weekly episodes or if you prefer the every other week type of thing. It's not quite as structured here on the week to week, but it has been a lot of just KG's opinions because there's been a lot of them bottled up, and so we just letting them out, and that's what it's been about lately. But I am recording this one now. It is Monday night. The Monday after the Sixers lost Game 4 to the Knicks in Philly in round 1 of the 2024 NBA playoffs. And we are now down, at the time of this recording, we are down 3-1. Now, I still can believe Sixers in 7. Leave me alone if you think I'm crazy. By the time this comes out, the Sixers very well, this episode releases on Thursday. They play Tuesday night. They may very well be eliminated by the time this comes out because the next game is in New York. And Game 4 in Philly sounded like a Knicks home game. But I'm a type of person, I'm a Philly diehard fan, right? Eagles and Sixers are like my two favorite teams in the universe. Followed closely by the Villanova Wildcats, which makes this matchup against the Knicks just that much more gut-wrenching because they have 3 players from those championship teams in 2016 and 18 that are just dominating the Sixers right now. I love the Villanova Wildcats, I love the Philadelphia Phillies, and then I got like a soft love for the Michigan Wolverines, right? And so I was very happy to see them win the national championship this year. And so now, at this point in my life, I've seen of my 5 major teams that I follow, I've seen the Philadelphia Eagles win a Super Bowl in 2018. I've seen the Philadelphia Phillies win a World Series in 2008. I've seen the Villanova Wildcats win a national championship in 2016 and 18. And now I've seen the Michigan Wolverines win a national championship. And the Sixers are the only one that has not won one in my lifetime. And we are coming to the end of Joel Embiid's window. Because this man, I would give him my knees. I would give him my knees. Easy. I would get at least one of them if it meant that he could stay healthy for a playoff run. But I used to be the type of dude that if my team lost, like specifically the Eagles, because now they play 17 games, they played 16 games, which means each game is just like that much more important. And you get down to the end of the MLB season, even when 162 games, like you could still see like some teams miss the playoffs by 1 game, and so like each game is important, but it's like even more important in the NFL season because there's only, 17 games now. But I used to be the dude that if my team lost, like I'd be pissed about it for like a week. Like, especially the Eagles, like I would listen to sports talk radio, like especially if it was a Cowboys game and we lost that junk. Oh, I would be fuming. I'd be steaming like all week long. I would be in a bad mood, right? I'd listen to sports talk radio. I'd watch the ESPN shows. I'd watch, Around the Horn, First Take, like all that, like get all their analysis of the game on why the Eagles blew it, why they still could win the Super Bowl. Like, I used to take in all of that content and I would stew over my team losing for the longest time until they had the next game. And then if they lost that one, then I would stew again. I'm not that dude anymore. You know what I was doing 10 minutes after the Sixers lost? 10 minutes after the final buzzer? I was riding my bike with 2 kids in the bike trailer right behind me, taking them to a playground. Like 10 minutes later, not thinking about the game no more. Like a little upset. Maybe I'm thinking about it a little bit. But I was on a bike ride with my wife and kids, taking my kids to a playground on a beautiful, like 70 something degree day here in Indiana. Like that's a perfect Midwestern spring day. And we're taking them to a playground. And that's what I was doing 10, 15 minutes after the Sixers lost. I never used to be that dude. But I came to a realization that I have to not let the things that are out of my control me. Whether the Sixers win or not, whether Joel Embiid can stay healthy or not, whether Jalen Hurts knows how to throw a football or not, I cannot control those things. Those things are so far out of my control. And so it's immature to allow those things to control me and my attitude and my outlook on life. And look, when I'm 21 years old, like I'm a stew over the games. You know what I mean? Like I'm 33 now. I'm a little older. I'm still young compared to some of you listening. I'm old compared to some of you listening. But like most people listening about my age, and it's like we know, like we're not 19 no more, right? We're not 22 anymore. Like, but there is still grown men that allow the outcome of a sports game to impact their entire week. Now I get it. If your team makes it to the Super Bowl and they lose because the refs threw a bogus flag at the end of the Super Bowl, you can let that bother you a year and a half later, all right? However, we can't let things out of our control us, and we need to focus on controlling what we can control. There's a lot of people like I'm starting just by talking sports because a lot of us dudes, we can relate to that. Some of you, sports is not your idol though. Sports is not your God. It might be politics. Politics might be your God. And whether your man or woman is or is not in the White House determines your whole outlook on life. What do you think? Trump was the worst thing ever and he had to go, or you think Biden's the worst thing ever and he's ruining the country? Like, whatever your outlook, if you are allowing what's happening in the White House to control you, grow up, stop being so immature, because what is happening in your house is more important than what's happening in the White House for you and your family. You have more control over your house than the White House. You control nothing about what's happening in Washington, D.C. Unless you are listening to this and you're like a senator or president, in which case, honored. Thank you for joining us. We're glad to have you on. Unless you are like one of them, like you have no control or say over what is happening in Washington, D.C. You know what you do have impact on is your house. You have way more influence in your house than in the White House. And so focus on controlling the things that you can control and stop allowing things you can't control to control you. And look, there might be times where things happen to you that are just completely out of your control and that impacts you, right? You lose a job, you have a medical thing that comes up, a diagnosis that impacts your life. Like those are things that might be out of your control, and you're sitting there and you're looking like, yo, Kev, like I would love to do that. However, this thing just changed my life. This job loss, my wife wants to go through divorce. Like I got this, just found out someone I love has cancer. Like these things can impact us and control us. That's not exactly what I'm talking about. And I think it's like you're smart enough to know the difference in that. But there are certain things that we as men, as fathers, as husband, or for the women listening, as wives, as mothers, there are certain things that we have influence over and that we can control. And there's just other things that are completely outside of our control. And I think for me, at least, I can waste so much time worrying and being anxious about the things out of my control that I forget to properly influence the things that are under my control, the things that I can influence, what's happening in my household. I might not be able to control inflation that's happening in our country right now, but I can control the finances in our family. I can control how the money is being spent in our family. I might not be able to control unexpected health emergencies that rise up, but I know that I can control doing my part to make sure that I am the healthiest that I can be by working out, by eating right, by taking care of myself. I can make sure that I am setting a positive influence for my kids, that they see what it looks like to have a dad that takes his health seriously. Like, I can control those things. I might not be able to control a ton of stuff. I can control making sure that my wife feels loved and appreciated and cared for and happy. And I would even say, I might have misstated that my wife's happiness is not something I can control. But I can do things to influence her joy. I can do things to make sure that she is feeling happy and cared for and appreciated. I can do that. I can serve her. I can love her. But even then, her happiness is out of my control. And sometimes, like, if my wife is not happy one day, I take that personally. And she knows that. Like, I will take it personally. Like, I did something wrong. And it might be like, nah, it's just a bad day. She didn't get a good night of sleep. Something like that. Like, I will take it personally as if, like, I am to be offended that she is not having a good day, that she is not happy. And it might just be like, yo, she just didn't sleep well last night. But her happiness is not under my control. I can do things to influence that. But ultimately, her happiness is between her and Jesus. I can make sure that I'm doing my part to not steal and rob her joy. But here's the thing, man. For me, what I have to continuously remind myself to do is the things that I worry about and am anxious about, I need to remember to take those to God in prayer, because that is a command. That is a command from God to not worry or be anxious about anything, but to pray about everything, and the peace of God, which transcends understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. And I love that he offers us not a fix to our problems, but peace for our worry. He doesn't promise us if we come to him that he's going to fix everything right away. You lost a job, you come to him. It ain't like he's just going to give you a job offer the next day. He might. You get diagnosed with cancer, you come to him. It ain't like he's just going to heal you of cancer the next day. He might. But he doesn't promise to do that. What he does promise is that if we come to him with our worry, with our anxiety, about the things that we can't control, he will give us peace for our worry. And I've experienced that peace. I've experienced that peace that makes no sense, that goes past understanding. Where I'm like, yo, I don't understand it. I don't see it. I don't know how this is going to play out. But I've seen God do enough in my life that I know that I can trust him to handle this. And so for some weird, bizarre, crazy reason, I have peace. And the only place that can come from is from God. Because, like, there's on earth, on paper, there is no reason why I should have peace in some of these situations except God. Except God promised to give me his peace in exchange for my worry, and I took him up on that. And he delivered. And no, he might not have fixed my problem the exact way that I would have, but I'm not God. And this ain't my universe, it's his. And he is the one that is in control. I worry and do the things that I can control, and I leave the rest to him. And so my encouragement to you this week, and usually it's something that we may have made a god or an idol out of. For a lot of dudes, that's sports. I've been there, sometimes still get there. For others, it might be politics. It might be your income. It might be your fitness level. It might be whatever. You know what it is. But stop worrying about the things that you can't control. Go to God about those things. And the drop for this week, the word for this week, stop letting the things you can't control you, and worry about controlling the things you can control. That's what I'm trying to do this week. That's what I'm trying to focus on this week. And so I hope that is something that you can work on and focus on this week as well. Stop worrying about what's happening in the White House. Worry about your house. What are you doing in your house to positively influence and grow the legacy in your family? I love you guys. Thank you for hanging out with us. Till next time, take care of yourself, take care of your family. This is Kicks and Minivans.